Hi everyone and welcome back to the garden. So I wanted to show you a few things that I have done. It has been sprinkling here this morning. It rained yesterday. We have had an unusually large amount of rain to be August. It's very, very unusual. I've planted a few things and haven't had to water anything because we've been getting so much rain. Not complaining about it because the garden loves it. It has slowed me down on doing a few projects because I think I've mentioned we have, pretty heavy clay and stuff gets kind of just gross and mushy if we have too much rain. So there's been a bit of delay, but I did come through last week and prune up the limbs to the spruce. Now I have left this one for now. This one's probably going to come out as well until I did some more design and figuring out what I'm going to do here. But look how much it opened up this space. I have a ton of underplanting room. I can actually stand under here. These limbs that were here were coming out into this area, impeding my access to the hose. I actually found where this tree had been tied up. You can see maybe the hose right there. It was on one of these limbs to keep it straight. But there still may be some little limbs I need to come in and prune. This lower one right here might come out. So you can see how much planting space this has given me that I haven't really had the space before. And so the sun's going to come in much better from this side in the morning. It's still going to be very much a part sun location instead of a full shade location. And then on the back side here, the sun will come in the afternoon. So I can plant some stuff all around in this area. And I've kind of got some things laid out now, but I've thought about it yesterday and I'm going to do a few changes, I believe. So I'm getting a different hydrangea that's coming in at the end of this month, just another week or so. I'm probably going to move this concrete container to the back. I don't have any concrete containers out back, and I'll probably find something next year that I can put in there that is a little drought tolerant, so I don't have to keep water on it consistently. But I'm thinking in front of or around the shed, one of those windows around the shed, where it'll be a really nice, I can plant some annuals in it. I'm probably going to move this 𝗗𝗓𝗧𝗦 that I just planted this spring, and I'm likely going to put it over there on that side where it can be seen from this direction here. So somewhere around in there. And the reason why is because I think I'm going to put a new hydrangea that I'm getting right here that'll get kind of large. I've mentioned that I don't have a lot of hydrangea interest out front. I have a lot of the tiny wee whites. I have some ruby, but they're all smaller hydrangeas. I don't have anything that makes like a really big impact with really big blooms and is really beautiful for a long time. The Invincibelle Ruby blooms kind of early, and so does the wee white, and then they just turn this kind of limey green. So I feel like I need something up here that's going to have a little more white, striking, color, so to say, for most of the season. So I think a larger hydrangea right here, it'll get a lot of morning sun and then through lunch. So it should be still a full sun location for it to perform pretty well. It'll be a paniculata. I'll share all those details with you when those come in. But I also have this 𝗩𝗟𝗔𝗡𝗢 that I planted over here in this location earlier a few months ago. I'm going to move that one as well over here. It'll be a little more protected. It's more variable or close to the zone. I think they did move it down to zone 6, but talking with proven winners, I think zone 7 is its preferred because it doesn't bloom on new growth. It only blooms on old growth, and so I've mentioned that in my channel before. The Macrophyllas that bloom on old growth, I don't recommend planting them in a Southwest Ohio because our winters are pretty bad. So I'm probably going to actually stick 𝗩𝗟𝗔𝗡𝗢 right here. That'll protect it this way from the winter wind. It'll still probably get enough sun here to perform, hopefully, and if not, then that may just not be a great hydrangea for our zone. It's kind of more of a trial, and that was my intention, is to see how it did here. And then I have these Nandinas, and I'm not sure where I'm going to put these Nandinas yet. Probably I may stick one actually kind of where it was right here. I've kind of got them laid out of how I've thought about laying out some of these plants. This is a Gold Shadows dogwood. It stays relatively small. It's a statement shrub, and an proven winner sent it out to me earlier this spring, and I was concerned of where I might put it because I didn't have a great shade location for it. Right here's about the only good place it would be, and it would probably get too much sun for its liking. That's how much it likes shade. So I'm thinking about sinking it in the ground right here, and then it can grow out, branch out a little bit, and it should never really hit the limbs of the spruce up here. If it does, then it can be trimmed down a little bit to stay nice and smaller. And then I have this ruby slippers Oakleaf hydrangea, which I also think would be really beautiful if planted in this location. You can kind of sprawl around these hostas and everything, but the rest of this is open. And let me go down just a little bit so you can see the view here. So you can now see all the way through the spruce, which means from this side of the spruce coming around the garden, I can also see through it into the front garden, which is kind of nice. Look at that view right there. Doesn't look so great on camera, but it's nice to see all the hostas behind there and the sidewalk, and the heuchera is behind that, and you can actually see the Crimson Queen Japanese maple in the back. So this area right here is still going to be very shaded. I did plant an Empress Wu hosta that I got on discount from that sale in late July or early July, mid-July, somewhere around in there, and it'll fill in this space right here. The other things you see in here, some of them are weeds and need to be pulled, but there's Pachysandra in here that I planted several years ago to fill this area up. And it hasn't grown. Pachysandra is a shade-loving plant, but there's not even been enough light under this spruce for there to be enough light for the Pachysandra to love it and grow. And it does already have drip on it. The strip's been here for several years. I actually had it cut off because I was having some pressure issues, so I put it in line on-off valve and just cut it off in the center because it wasn't needed since it wasn't planted. But this is the only limb that's left, really, that I may remove after I figure out what my design choice is going to be, because it still hangs pretty low like the others. But until I get some things in here, I don't want to necessarily cut it off so you can see all the way through to this back side of the garden. If you have any other planting ideas in this location, because it is going to be pretty shady, especially this part, because we have the spruce and then we have the tree that's behind me here. So this area in particular right here is going to be very shady. So I've got to figure out some things besides hostas that might do well in that location with very limited light. I have not really faced that issue in my garden before because the only big tree that I have is this one behind me, and it gets pretty good morning light and then some afternoon and evening light. This area right here may get very, very little light, and so I might have to resort to some type of ground cover or some other perennial that stays fairly small. I'm still thinking about it, not sure what I'll do yet, but I'm not like super urgent to plant it up because that's more planting space that I can do something interesting with in the spring potentially, or as I stumble upon some plants that might like that location this fall. And so I am kind of really excited about how this has opened up more planting room for me. I'm thinking about doing the same thing on the other side to the blue spruce. Not quite as tall as this one, but you know I was having some issues with some plants under there. Why don't we go take a look right quick? So you can see in this location I'm having the same issue. These limbs are actually crawling out into the lawn. It's kind of difficult to cut under, so I'm going to be limbing at least those up. I may go as far as to limb this one up right here. Yeah, because this one's the one that's growing pretty low, and so I need to come in and trim those up so you can actually see the hostas. You can see they're getting a little bleached from the amount of sun they're getting here. They're more green inside. That'll give them a little more light, and they might actually not like that space as much. I might have to move them back a little bit. But one of the primary reasons is because this is crawling out into the yard. And then I have this area right here where a lot of the plants are going to get moved around, but I have these ferns under here, these ghost ferns by Proven Winners. This is called crested surf. Really beautiful, but they're not really getting enough light to perform either because they're so protected. But if I remove just like these limbs right here, that'll open up and you'll actually be able to see all the way through to the other side, just like the other tree. And so that'll give me some interesting planting choices around here under this spruce. It's also really, really difficult to mulch under this thing because you just basically have to crawl around. So I've been a little delayed on this project as well. I haven't really done anything since I extended the bed, which I'm intending to remove some of the plants, but it's just been so wet, and I've also had to wait for some trash to be picked up so I could put some of this stuff in the trash. The main stuff I'm going to be getting rid of probably these irises. I have lots of other irises in my garden. These don't tend to bloom very well over here. They weren't some that I picked out like that I just loved. They were a box from Lowe's or Walmart or something. So I'm probably going to remove those. I'm going to remove a lot of the perennials that are here. Some of them will get moved to other parts in the garden that I think they might perform a little better. And the shrubs themselves are also going to get moved to a different part of the garden. I'm not going to throw them away, but I just want to bring in some different shrubs that I think might perform a little better in this location anyway. My climbing rose here on this arbor actually started to climb, and I came and tied it up the other day. I'm really excited about that, how much growth it's put on this year, because I wasn't expecting quite this much. It had a rough start with the dry weather we had, but now that it's cooling off and we're getting into some cooler weather, it's doing a good job climbing up. This one still is a little behind because it's kind of hidden by this Hydrangea, but I gave it enough prune job earlier this year that I think it can climb out and start getting a little more sun and take off. I just really love this area of the garden. I have these roses right here. This is Pachysandra and this Bobo hydrangea, and then the vegetable garden with all the dahlias. I don't know why it's such a nice view to me. I need to come through and prune some more dahlias off, but I'm getting lots of beautiful blooms. Check these out. This is still one of my favorite ones, and I have no idea for the life of me what flower this is, but it's so whimsical and it's producing a ton. You can see all these buds here that it's going to continue producing. And then pinhole watermelon, which you can't really put a price on. Gorgeous. So for that container that I mentioned moving back here, I'm actually thinking of sticking it either right there between this boxwood and this spirea that I have planted in the ground. So it'll be immediately in front of this window and it'll fall about right here. I also kind of considered putting it in the middle here, so it'll be a middle around these beds. And the only other spot that I can think of, because I don't want to crowd a bunch of concrete pieces together and we have the bench over there, would be somewhere in this location. So maybe like right here. So it would still be upward along this fence. The roses would grow under it. I did come through and pull out the 𝗗𝗧𝗦s, by the way. I don't think that's been in a video yet, but they were getting much too shaggy for my liking, so they needed to come out. And this area looks a lot better since I did that. I think it was looking kind of shaggy. There was inconsistencies in height. These roses are just growing pretty slow, but they were planted from a little 4-inch container, so it'll take them a little bit, a couple seasons to catch up to what I would have purchased at the garden center, being planted directly in the ground anyway from that location, if we don't have any critter damage this winter. My Teasing Georgia roses on this moongate are also going out of control, so I need to come in and start tying those up a little more. I've already done some tying up throughout the season, but I want to make sure they stay pretty close to this moongate arch. That way they will be beautiful next year. They're actually growing just as well as the one I just showed you, pretty high already on this thing. So if we can get even just a few more feet of growth out of them before the first freeze, I'll have a nice starting point for next year, where I don't know that I could get them to touch on top next year, but they would be really close, I think, and we get lots of beautiful blooms in the spring, hopefully. That's all I wanted to show you guys today. It's been sprinkling. I don't know if I'll be able to get out here and get anything done today as well, because the rain's been on and off. My hydrangeas are starting to change color here. This is limelight, and I usually do not get a lot of this coloring up, which has been really impressing me this year. Mine, in the past few years, because it's been so dry, has just turned brown almost, even with drip irrigation. So I'm loving this color this year in the garden. And they're actually reaching that point where probably another week or so I can start cutting and doing arrangements, dried arrangements with them. I could cut them now for other arrangements. I may do a video on just coming through and cutting some things in the garden and including those in an arrangement. I did that last year and it wasn't watched a whole lot, but if you're interested in seeing that, that'll be a little fun for me, because I haven't done an arrangement this year and I still have some roses that are blooming pretty good. So let me know. We have all these dahlias. I'm finally getting some zinnias to use, so that might be a fun little video. Let me know what you think, guys, and thanks for following along. And remember, in a world full of hate, be a light. Take care. Bye.